impossible for you to imitate it, right? Another challenge of the Quran is the contradiction challenge, right? That find a contradiction in the Quran. Find two statements that go against each other in the Quran that contradict each other. If this scripture claims to be from God, God doesn't make mistakes, isn't it? If God doesn't make mistakes, then obviously if there is a mistake, it's not from God, right? It's from a human being or something like that. So anyone who claims the Quran is from a human being, investigate it. Does it really have contradictions? Is it really contradictions what you're reading, or is it someone mistaken the understanding of the verse? Is it a mistranslation of the verse, right? So you investigate, go to any Muslim person and say, oh, why is this contradiction? Obviously someone who has a bit of knowledge, not any layman on the street, right? So go to someone who understands about his religion, ask him, is this a contradiction? Why is this, right? And the Quran has something else which is very miraculous, which is the memorization of the Quran, right? I want you to imagine something, right? You're from Spain, you're from England, let's say I'm from somewhere, it doesn't matter where I'm from, right? And we don't all speak Chinese, right? Obviously you don't speak Chinese, you don't speak Chinese. Because it's the hardest language, one of the hardest languages, isn't it? So we don't all speak Chinese, right? There is a book this big in Chinese, right? What is the possibility of all of us memorizing this book, letter by letter, vowel by vowel, reciting like Chinese people, exactly, reading like Chinese people, not making any mistakes? What is the possibility of three of us doing that? What is the possibility of the three of us doing that when we are 6 years old? If you are 6 years old, memorizing a book this big in Chinese, and you come from this country, I come from this country, everyone comes from a country, and we're reciting the same thing, the exact same thing, every vowel, every word. What is the possibility of you doing that? Obviously that doesn't happen, right? Have you ever met in your life a person who memorizes the Bible, not in English, in Greek and in Asian Hebrew? Is there actually a person who does that in the entire planet? Who memorizes the Bible?
Does that mean the book is true or false? Right? It doesn't mean if the book is true or false.
Did I say that?
No, I don't understand the point.
What I'm saying is the miraculous nature of the Quran. This is unique to the Quran. You will never find it specifically that it can be memorized by anyone, even 6-year-old children can memorize it, right?
I would say that any book can be memorized, so
any book can be memorized by 6 years old who doesn't speak the language of the book.
If it was the done thing to teach a 6-year-old, whatever book, pick a book, okay. Lord of the Rings, say, sure, that it was in the culture.
Can you show me a single book that is memorized by 6 years old in a language? So it's a claim that is falsifiable. I can show you millions of children who do.
Yeah, but there probably is a 6-year-old who's memorized a book somewhere. Because I can't bring him to.
It depends how big the book is, right? Number one. So the Quran is 6,000 verses, right? Number one, the Quran is 6,000 verses, right? It's not a small book, right? It speaks about different things. It's an ancient Arabic. It's not an even day-to-day Arabic that we speak, right? So it's an ancient Arabic language. That's why I said Asian Hebrew and Greek, because they're both Asian languages, right? So show me a child that can memorize a book in an Asian language other than his, right? And he's 6 years old and he memorized letter by letter. If you say something wrong, he will correct you. Okay. Is that possible?
Yeah, I'd say still say it's possible.
Okay, give me an example.
I haven't got an example.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why.
I can say
that book is it can be done with that book only.
I can say it's possible. I can say it's possible that you become a woman tomorrow. Yeah. If I don't give evidence for what I'm saying, it's just a claim, right?
The point I'm trying to get at is it's just words.
Are you Christian yourself, by the way?
No, I'm okay. Probably agnostic, more atheist. But
have you read the Bible?
Only like when you go to school. I've never read it, studied it. Right?
So if you haven't read the Bible, how can you make a claim that someone can memorize?
Well, I'm saying I don't understand why you think the words in your book you can memorize, but not other words in another book.
The reason
still words.
The reason is two things, right? Number one, that we believe the Quran is the word of God, right? And the Quran, God says that He made this book easy for memorization. So there is a claim here. The second reason is that we see the reality of this happening. We see blind children, right? 7 years old that memorize the entire book, blind. So they cannot even look at the book and read.
If they've learned it, they've heard it, they've been taught.
Definitely. It's not about how they learned it. It's about the fact that they learned. And it's not even the language.
So you're saying the same 7-year-old couldn't be taught to memorize another book?
I would say it's not going to be possible. If you try to teach in the conditions that I gave, right? Asian language, 6,000 verses, right? Or 6,000 verses, yeah, above 6,000 verses. And when you recite, he recites perfectly, like the language of the people, of the language itself. If you read wrongly, he will correct you. He will tell you, no, you made a mistake here, you made a mistake there.
If he knows the book, he can correct you, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if I'm now making a claim that you can't. You're making a claim that you can. So if you make a claim that you can, you might can, right? It might happen, but it will be an extraordinary thing, right? It will not be the regular.
It's not impossible, but it's highly improbable.
Exactly. So I'm saying it will not be the general case.
So it's possible, but highly improbable. You'll be happy with that, right?
The problem I got is I don't understand why every other book in the world is highly improbable, but the Quran or whatever.
Because the fact that we see today people, children, everywhere around the world, millions memorizing the Quran. So we see the reality. That is the reason we say that.
Is there another culture that has that tradition to memorize a book? I don't know personally, but if there is, I'm sure they could memorize their book. I don't see why they couldn't memorize their book at 6 years old if that was their tradition from birth all the way back hundreds of years or whatever. I don't understand why memorizing the Quran is special. It's just your done thing.
I never said that. I said what is special, that the fact that they do, right? And if you don't believe that millions, right? If you believe, no. I mean, if you believe that millions can memorize any book, right, around the world, show me evidence of that happening, right? A lot of people try to teach their children to memorize other books, try to teach them to memorize the Bible. Some people today, and you can see that not even children, old people, they try to memorize the entire Bible, but they can't. They get confused, right? The language of the Bible itself does not allow you. The Quran has a miraculous nature as well of recitation, right? It has some sort of a rhythm that allows you also to memorize, right? So we're not making a claim that it's impossible for a child to memorize another book, but we're saying it's very difficult and highly probable for it to happen. So if you see a phenomena of millions of people doing it,
does it not say?
So can I finish the statement that I'm saying?
About memorizing, yeah.
Sure.
Does it not say in the Quran, yeah, that you take one step to Allah, and Allah takes two. So
no, that's in the Hadith, not in the Quran.
It's in the Hadith.
Yes.
Is it Hadith?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. But it's the same thing. It's saying the same thing. You take one step, and Allah takes two. You take two, and Allah takes four. Is that correct?
No.
Not exactly like that.
Not exactly like that, but the meaning is similar to what you're saying.
Did you not say something about if you start memorizing that ayat?
The meaning is
when
similar.
you memorize the ayat, you memorize one, Allah will give you the next one.
No.
Did you not say that?
No.
No?
The Quran says that the Quran is, Allah made it easy for memorization, which is clear. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ. Yeah.
Where
In Surah Hijr, I think. Hijr, chapter 15.
Is it you think or is that right?
Chapter 15. Most likely. You can research it.
Al-Hijr.
Al-Hijr, yeah. Chapter 15. You'll probably find it there. So, I don't know if we agree or disagree so far. Do we agree it's highly unlikely for...
It's the same probability for not any book, obviously War and Peace. Some books are harder than others, but to memorize.
What makes things harder? That's the question. Highlighting
length, density, the complexity. But what I'm saying is, I don't understand what sets the Quran apart that is special to be memorized, where any other books can
add in a little bit here.
Highly impossible.
What is easy to memorize, prose or poetry?
I wouldn't know. I haven't memorized anything myself, so I wouldn't know.
Poetry, because it has certain rhymes and meters, right? You can memorize it like this. It's easy. That's why children, when they memorize, children, what are they called? At a very early age, when they memorize, they're not called poems, poetry. Children at early age, make them memorize something.
Matn, you mean?
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Or,
nursery rhymes.
What are they?
Like nursery rhymes.
Nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
Why do we call them rhymes? Because they rhyme, children are able to use it to memorize. If you ask them to memorize a text written by a scientific professor on a particular, in cosmology, and ask them to memorize it, they will, but it will be harder than one which is a rhyme.
Yeah, so they could memorize it and perhaps not understand it.
But it will be difficult in terms of complexity and
sounds
difficulty.
of saying the words,
the difficulty of
I think they could
memorizing
do.
rhymes,
not know what those
meters,
words
and
mean.
prose is different. Quran is not prose or is not poetry.
Yeah.
It has a unique genre, and yet people are able to memorize it. Other people, even though they try because of their religious connection to memorize the Bible, the New Testament and Old Testament, they're not able to memorize as much as they want to. Okay? How many in your lifetime that you have met, they have memorized the whole of the Greek New Testament? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to children, adults.
Me personally, I don't know many.
This is something that you can do. Do some research through the libraries, academic institutions, or even internet, on your phone, on your computer. What's the number of people have memorized the entire Greek New Testament in Greek? Doesn't matter whether they're professors of Greek language or a child or an adult. How many of them? If they're not many in number, why is it difficult? One question. And secondly, is it because they don't consider it's important, or is it because which one they should memorize? Because they haven't got a particular one which they think is the one unique one.
Have they had the same tradition of memorising it? They may not have put the same importance on memorising it from all the way back.
Do you know why we consider it important? Because memorization of the text will preserve the text in your heart. You can change it on paper.
54:22.
Transform it differently in transcription. But when you have preserved in your heart to heart by mass community of people, and they transmit from generation to generation, you will not be able to change it. So you can destroy whole of the Quran in printed media, in CDs, in DVDs.
Chapter 54, verse 22.
Digital media, whatever you are. Yeah. All of them. You can bring the Quran back from a 6-year-old the next moment you want to do that.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's how the preservation of the Quran is. So my brother's point here is the Quran has a unique special feature of its divine authenticity, in which God made it easy to remember so that it can be preserved also from generation to generation. How is it subjective?
It's easy.
When you say subjective, if it wasn't objective, then you would say only some people can memorize it.
So you think every person who's tried to memorize it has memorized it and can just read it
Think of a number.
Or do you think somebody has tried and gone, I can't do this?
Let me ask you to reflect. How many people do you think right now have memorized the Quran on planet Earth? Give me a rough estimate.
I don't know. Give me how many Muslims in the world?
1/4 of the world population or more.
I'd probably say, I guess a quarter of them, maybe. Right. 10% of them.
So 10% of them, that's a large number who memorized it. So isn't that showing something that's actually easy to remember? Otherwise you'd find maybe 100, 200, 1,000.
If it was that easy, why does the other 90% not? If it was easy.
Maybe the other 90% are not making that effort.
Maybe. But we don't know. They could be making the effort.
We know they're not making that effort.
No, we don't know that.
We do. Okay, fine.
Maybe.
You know, in London, there are several mosques around. Yeah. And we can go to a mosque in Maghrib time or Isha time. These are after sunset, or just a little bit later in the early morning, early part of the night. The Quran is recited aloud. You'll find people listening to it. You can ask a certain number of people in the congregation, have you memorized the Quran? They say all of it. If they say no, ask them why not. You'll get your answer straight away. It's not that they say, okay, I tried and tried for 30 years.
Do you know of any people who've tried and failed?
Who tried and failed?
Okay, can you
personally no?
Can you observe first how did they try? Okay, I don't
know how you taught it.
Okay,
so
I can open a book, right? Read the book once, then I say I tried to memorize the book, but I couldn't. Is this really trying? Right?
All right, so do you know any people who've gone through the correct procedures?
Okay.
Read it however many times you have to.
I want to make a few points.
And it will not stick in their head.
Sure. I want to make a few points. First point is every Muslim must memorize a part of the Quran. Like for example, chapter 1, other verses to recite when they pray. Right? So every Muslim memorizes a part of the Quran. That is a fact, right? They cannot pray otherwise. Or except if they're new Muslim. Except if they're a new Muslim, right? Then they start to memorize, right? So take the time to memorize. But every Muslim, in order for you to pray, you must memorize a part of the Quran. So what is unique about the Quran? Not just the fact that they memorize. What you're thinking about in your mind, that you're reading a book in your language. I'm telling you, pick a book in a language that you don't understand, right? So when you don't understand something and you're saying, it's easy to memorize something that you understand. Because, right, you understand what you're saying. But if you don't understand what you're saying, it's much, much, much harder, right? So I'm giving you an example of a book in one of the hardest languages of the world, right? Which is Arabic, in the Asian form of it, and it's being memorized. I'm not just giving you any language that is your language, that is easy, that... You understand what I'm trying to say? That's what makes it miraculous in a sense, right? So there is a claim in the Quran. What I'm trying to say is that there is a claim in the Quran, right? That the book is easy to memorize. This claim is proven in the physical reality. We can see this claim in the physical reality. And that gives us credibility for the Quran, right? Because it's not just a claim here or there. When he makes a claim, you see it. Yeah, you want to say something?
No, go.
When he makes a claim, we see it on the physical reality, right? So that gives it credibility.
I'm not sure if I agree with that, because if we go by, say, I don't know, say if we go by that 10% that I said, I don't know if that's true or not. If it was easy, which means easy, it's not, oh, you can do it if you really try, it's easy. Why are the other 90%, or even, alright, some people won't try, I'll give you that, some people probably don't care about it as much. Why is there not a bigger number then? Why is there not, say, 8 out of every 10 Muslims know it off by heart? It's easy.
Is 10% a small number?
Out of 100.
Especially if you look at the population of Muslims.
No, the 10% was out of the population of Muslims.
Sorry?
So that 10% is 10% of the population of Muslims.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, is that a small number?
Yes.
Millions is a small number.
In terms of the entire population, yes, 10% of 100% is a small number.
The rest of the people, right? What we know as Muslims is the Quran is not obligatory to memorize, right? So they might not memorize because they don't want to memorize. The person who wants to memorize is the person who he believes this is the words of Allah, yeah? So he holds it in high esteem. So he wants to memorize it because of that, right? So the fact that many people are not memorized because it's not obligatory for you to memorize anyways in the first place.
But what I'm saying is, it's easy.
So,
if it's easy.
Even if it's easy.
No, if it's easy, why is it not 9 out of 10 Muslims? No, if it's easy to memorize.
99% of Muslims will memorize it if it's obligatory to do so. If it's not obligatory to do so, the question should be, why would they memorize it? Not why wouldn't they memorize it? The default position is that you don't memorize. So you need a reason to memorize. So you got it mixed the other way, right? So if I want to memorize something, I must have a reason to memorize it. So as long as it's not obligatory in Islam to memorize the Quran, the people who do it, they do it out of voluntarily act because they hold it in high esteem more than the other people, right? That's why we have this population of 10% of Muslims memorizing. But this 10%, different ages, different languages, different places, proves that there is something about the Quran. It's not just an ordinary book that you memorize, right?
What other special features of the Quran that you'd like to share? So one, this is memorization.
Maybe move on to something else next.
Yeah, definitely. What we would like to come to is the existence of God, right? Because you said that you're agnostic, right? This is how you...
Try to tell you a question I do have about, not particular to your religion, just the idea of a creator.
Sure.
Is this creator has created absolutely everything. Small atoms, furthest galaxies, all the rest of it, everything inside it. I can't make the leap of why he cares about very minor details in religion, say circumcision, the way you pray, the amount of times you do it a day. I just think these things would be very, very minuscule things to such a grand creator of everything. These very, very small details could I don't know what it's like in your religion, could decide if you burn in hell forever or go to heaven.
Good question.
I'm not saying murder, like it doesn't care for murder. I'm saying if you pray 4 times instead of 5, or you pray at the wrong time, or you're not circumcised. I don't understand why something that grand would care about such small issues.
So there's 2 reasons, right? First reason is this, so I want to ask you, if there is a person who is a manufacturer, right, or a creator of something, right, and he creates something, right, that you don't know how that something works. So he writes a manual where he gives you every specific detail of how that thing functions, right? And we have another manufacturer who made something, and he just told you one or 2 things about that thing that he made. Which one is a better manufacturer or creator?
But no, I don't mean how to live your life.
I never spoken about how. I'm just giving a hypothetical example right now, right? Two people who made something, you don't know how to operate that something, but one told you every specific detail of how you operate it, and another person who told you 1 or 2 things and he left you. to deal with it.
But that's not.
Which one is a better? It's a simple question.
Yeah, but it's the wrong.
Which one?
It's the wrong. I don't know if I've asked the question wrongly, but it's not the point. It's not. He's telling.
I'll tell you how it
works.
links to the point if you answer the question.
Well, obviously, if he gives more detail of how something works, that's better. But he's not.
Okay.
I'm not. The question I'm asking is not what he's telling us how the world works. What I'm saying is, why does he care? For example.
Good. If you allow me to finish, you'll understand that I was not talking about the world, right? I was talking about the functions of human beings. I was talking about what is good, what is bad for human beings. Human beings by nature, they require guidance. That's why we have laws. That's why we have our parents teaching us things when we're young. We require guidance, right? God giving us specific guidance proves how great He is, not the opposite, right? So Allah giving us details of what is good to us, what is bad for us. Circumcision is good for you. That's why Allah made it. Told you to do it, right? Drinking alcohol is bad for you. That's why Allah forbade you from doing it. Eating pork is bad for you. Sorry?
A lot of things are bad for people.
Show me one thing which is bad, right? That Islam tells you to do.
It tells you can do.
Yeah.
Not can do.
It tell you to do. It orders you to do.
But orders you to do or allows you to do.
Look, you can do anything bad out of your own will, right? I'm asking you, in the system, Islamic system, what does the Islamic system order you to do which is bad for you?
I wouldn't know. I don't know the. Yeah.
So here, if you don't know, obviously we don't find anything, right? If we don't find anything that proves the Islamic system, to an extent, until you research and find something, but the Islamic system is perfect. It doesn't have anything bad, right? So if Islam tells you things which are good for you, what is the problem in that? That makes Allah a greater creator, right? It makes Him the greatest, as we call Him, right? Because He gave you every specific detail. If He did not give you every specific detail, and you started to do something which is harming yourself, right? That proved the manufacturer left you without guidance.
What? I don't know why I'm sticking at this point. What is it about circumcision that's bad for you if you don't have it, or good for you if you do have it?
Sure.
Because He created us with one.
Sorry?
He designed us with a foreskin and then demands us to cut it off. That's what I understand.
Sure.
Like little things like that.
Sure.
Not what's good or bad for our health.
Okay.
Don't take drugs. I get those things. But little details like I'm designing you with something, then you immediately have to cut it off, and if you don't, I'm going to be very mad at you. Like you know.
No, nothing in Islam says that, though. Nothing in Islam says if you don't, I'll be very mad at you. In fact, in the schools of thought, there's difference of opinion whether it's obligatory or not, right? So this is what you should look at too, right? Is it obligatory? Is it not obligatory in Islam to begin with, right? But the main reason is what? Look, if the Quran is truly coming from Allah, right? It's coming from God. It's coming from the Creator. The Creator, by definition, knows His creation. Do we agree? Whatever Creator created something knows His creation, right? So when the Creator, the one that has infinite wisdom and infinite knowledge, do you have infinite wisdom and infinite knowledge, right? We don't have infinite wisdom and infinite knowledge. So when Allah tells us something, we do it because we know it's good for us, because it's coming from the one who has infinite wisdom, infinite knowledge. The reason that we do it is many reasons. One of them is worship. Following the command of the Creator is worship to the Creator, right? The second one is because it's good for you. Definitely good for you, because it's coming from the All-Wise, right? So you're worshiping Him, you're being obedient, and you're surrendering yourself when you follow the commandments of the Creator, right? So God is giving you commandments to do. If Allah made everything simple for you, you don't have to do anything. What's the point of creating you in the first place? There will be things that you have to do, right? As a form of obedience, as a form of connecting with the Creator, as a form of being spiritually fulfilled, right? So is that the problem, your problem with the Creator?
My problem with the idea of the Creator and those small rules that he's put in is if I...
Can I just add something to it? You were basically saying, why would small, very minor issues would lead people to eternal damnation and suffering in hellfire? But that's not what we say, that who will be in everlasting hellfire. If there are people who are violating certain commands of God, you need to understand what commands this came under in which category. Whether totally absolutely forbidden, whether we're simply saying, okay, you shouldn't do it as a dislike. The levels of categories of absolutely mandatory to absolutely forbidden, and in between there are dislike, and recommended, and permissible. There are 5 categories. The legislation from God comes under 5 categories. One end is absolutely obligatory for everyone to do, mandatory. The other extreme is totally forbidden. You have to abstain from doing that. In the middle is, which is called permissible. It doesn't matter whether you do or not do it. And in between there's one which is recommended, and other is which is disliked. So if it's something like, for example, someone couldn't do circumcision for medical reasons or is scared or whatever, it's not going to put them in hellfire for eternity. What puts people in hellfire for eternity are the major crimes that God has told us about. Associating partner with God. If you did not repent from it and ask forgiveness from it and you died in that state, this is a sin that God doesn't forgive. But other crimes against God, so it is not that these major things like, instead of praying 5 times a day, you prayed 4, as you said, and that will lead you to hellfire for eternity. No, it may be that, you were physically unable to. You were mentally unable to. God is merciful. He doesn't burden us something that we cannot bear. So if someone is not able to pray 5 times because there is a genuine reason they're unable to, then God is merciful and God is kind and God is just. But if somebody does that routinely, then he's committing a sin. But it doesn't mean this sin will make them into hellfire for eternity. No, we are told in Islam that because of their belief in Allah is the only one worthy of worship, alone worthy of worship, and they worship and submitted and surrendered their will to Allah and followed the Prophet, eventually, after all this time of punishment, depending on how long they need to be purified for that sin they have done, they will finally return at one point to paradise in Jannah to live eternally. Think about it. If you have an eternal life in paradise and you get punished for one year, 1,000 years, 1 billion years, 1 billion years compared to eternity is nothing. So I'm not saying you'll be punished 1 billion years. I'm saying eventually after you're cleansing from your things that you did, God will cleanse you with His punishment. He will purify you because God is just. Okay? If He decides to forgive, that's up to Him. But if He does punish you, eventually, because you said La ilaha illallah, you will return. This is the key to paradise. You will return to paradise. This is God's promise. So these minor things that you're saying, we don't believe that leads people to eternal hellfire. That's not the category.
Do get punished.
Yeah, because God has given you a system in which He asks you to do something and to abstain from doing something. Were you really a person that really believed and abided by it? Did you really obey? If you work for a company and the company says, you know what, I want you to do this transaction, and you just sit there and you make your own money and you don't do any work. At the end of the day, do you expect your company to keep you in your job?
No, but
and also give you salaries?
If they demanded I walked a certain way, and then I didn't do it, I had to walk down this corridor a certain way, and I took 1 foot out of line, just purely because they told me to.
Not like that.
Right? If I got sacked, then I would say that's unjust.
No. If it's like
not
this, let me give you an example.
Stealing from the company. I agree.
Let me give you an example. Okay, now there are several deals to make. Okay, one deal will make profit, 500% profit. Another deal will make you loss, and you keep taking the wrong deal, making the company lose. Right? You do that consistently. Do you expect your employer to keep you on your job and to give you a bonus and pay your salary?
No. But
you don't expect that, do you?
I don't. No, I don't think.
You don't expect any employer to do that. In fact, that would be a very unjust employer, very unwise employer. So the Creator also gave us legislations, and He wants us to do and avoid the don'ts as best as we can. Now, if you keep on doing what you're supposed to avoid it, and you willingly persist on doing that, why are you expecting that the Creator is going to say, I'm not going to punish you for that. I'm not going to somehow make you accountable for it.
So, do you think
about, sorry to interrupt, think about like this, because you're thinking about in a different way. Think about hitting someone, maiming someone, breaking their legs, making them disabled, and you did it consistently. And you expect the society to say, that's all right, we're not going to punish you. It's all right, carry on doing that.
No, I don't think that's the same as demanding, maybe not demanding. You said it.
Think about it. But killing and breaking the legs is a huge difference. Killing is a grave crime. Breaking the legs is not as killing. So you keep on breaking someone's legs and arms and tooth and nose and ears and eyes, but you don't kill them. And you don't expect the societal order to somehow, we're talking about the judges, the crime and criminal system, and they would say, it's all right, what's your name?